People in this world can become stronger just by being online. The only thing to do is to step out of the house. Only a few are brave enough to step out of the house. This is because 700 years ago, the end of the world came. A kind of monster called the Fallen has taken over the world. Just as humanity's fate hangs in the balance, a tower suddenly appears. It became the last safe haven in this world. As long as you step out of the range of the tower, even if you survive for just 1 second, you can gain extraordinary power. But in return, you will have to face various strangeness and distortions. Where there are people, there are classes. People in the tall tower are divided into different classes. The upper-class people capture the lower-class people and throw them outside the tower for entertainment, betting on their survival time as a form of gambling. Bai Wu is a beggar who is being used for entertainment. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the extremely hot outdoors on the 7th floor. But what he is more curious about than where he is the sky. Because when he gazes at the sky, the dialogue box reminds him that the temperature here is 60 degrees and is rising at a rate of 0.2 degrees per minute. Bai Wu sat up when he saw it. There was a very serious burn on his back. The dialogue box in his eyes continued without stopping. But now Bai Wu is thinking about other things. When he looked at a relatively intact building for about 3 seconds, the dialogue box also changed. A public restroom that has not been used for 700 years. The danger rating is 3.5 stars. Inside, the Fallen are moderately distorted. The service attitude is very enthusiastic. Then he looked at other ruins immediately. After several experiments, he was sure he could see some information. As long as he fixed his gaze on an object for 2 or 3 seconds, a dialogue box would pop up. Finally, he turned his gaze to his wrist. I must have time traveled. Why am I wearing handcuffs? Have I become a criminal in this life? In the previous life on Bai Wu, the final sound in my memory was a gunshot. The true culprit behind a murder case. And he is a special officer from a certain criminal investigation detachment, with outstanding observational skills and analytical decoding abilities. Moreover, he has been different from others since childhood, having a constitution immune to negative emotions. When his father passed away, he did not shed a single tear. At that moment, the words in the dialogue box brought him back to reality. Some handcuffs are not proper. They look like handcuffs on the surface, but behind the scenes, they are surveillance devices for 4 layers of nobles. But it's best not to destroy it. Right now, it's more important to find cumin. You will burn yourself if you wait any longer. Bai Wu walked on the street, pondering quickly. It seems like I have crossed over to a very strange world. And it looks like I am in a very difficult situation. The human body can endure in a 71-degree environment for 1 hour. Endurance is 49 minutes at 82 degrees. He doesn't have much time left. Is there any surveillance as well? Thinking of this, Bai Wu raised his head as if sensing something. This scene also appeared synchronously in the hall where the nobles were enjoying themselves. These high-ranking officials showed expressions of puzzlement. Wasn't it said that the blue area is a world of wonders? Why isn't he dead yet? Would the host have found a talented person to impersonate a slave? Bai Wu took a deep breath and continued to walk forward quickly. He silently recalled the memories of the original owner of this body in his mind. 700 years, tall tower, the Fallen, nobility, handcuffs, environment. So is this a gamble on one's survival time? Bai Wu only had a faint understanding in his heart, because he inherited very few memories. And now the temperature is probably already 70 degrees. The top priority is to find a shady place. At this moment, the sound of water suddenly came. Bai Wu immediately turned his head to look. The rules outside the tower are truly absurd. It's unconventional to encounter a water source in this kind of weather. It's not consistent with physics common sense. Bai Wu ignored the nonsense in the dialogue box and turned to the fire hydrant. In a place where no one has lived for 700 years, there is still equipment that can be used. Moreover, in such high temperatures, the water is unexpectedly ice cold. Bai Wu became more and more curious about this world. In that case, at least the temperature in the sewer shouldn't be so extreme. And the fact that water can spray out around here means that the entrance to the underground shouldn't be too far away. Bai Wu quickly found the entrance to the underground along the edge of the road. The manhole cover had long been pried open. Bai Wu didn't hesitate. His body was nearing its limit, and the real breakthrough was to find the way back to the high tower. Before entering the underground, he wanted to do one more thing. He wanted to show the people above that he was diametrically opposed to gambling and drug addiction. However, he didn't know which language the people in this world used. He probably just wanted to convey a message. At the same time, in the noble space on the 4th floor of the high tower, the nobles once again became excited. They don't understand. Why hasn't this beggar without a talent sequence died yet? And Bai Wu has no interest. International gestures are still universally applicable even in another world. Similarly, A red-clothed noblewoman on the VIP stand picked up the phone. She scolded her subordinate for not inspecting the source of goods carefully. On the other end of the phone, the person in charge of this gambling was also very frightened. Cold sweat had covered their face. After hanging up the phone, they immediately ordered the man next to them wearing armor. The fallen in the blue area is very powerful. You'd better control your emotions. These monsters will go berserk and attack at the slightest whiff of negative emotions. However, you must remember that even if you die, you must not let it live. At this moment, Bai Wu has already arrived at the sewer. What surprises him is the sparkling crystal light in the main waterway. His face is reflected on the water's surface. The dialogue box started to comment again. A little beggar at the bottom of a high tower. He actually has a face worth 9 out of 10. This is so unfair. I want to get gay with you. Bai Wu was speechless. He stood up and continued to observe his surroundings. His past experience told him that since there was a gambling setup, someone had to be controlling the odds. He was now outside the monitoring range. Someone would definitely come find him for an explanation. He needed to find a way to deal with the newcomer. After a moment, he stopped in his tracks. At that very moment, he heard another set of footsteps. The person looking for me has arrived. Bai Wu's mouth curved into a slight smile. Following the faint footsteps, Bai Wu's eyes focused on the figure approaching in the darkness. Associated power, 2nd stage, 4th level. Talent sequence 755, steel armament. His strength is probably on par with the spirit building level the fallen for a round. He can be considered a nobody. Of course you, a nobody too, shouldn't be too proud. It would be easy to crack open your skull. Bai Wu is still not clear about what talent sequence is, but he knows that the other party's intention to kill him is not easy. The next second, Bai Wu hid in the shadows and spoke directly. My old buddy, you finally showed up. Your slowpoke speed is even slower than a groundhog's. The newcomer stood still for a moment. Bai Wu didn't know if the other party could understand, but judging from the reaction, they probably could. The darkness of the sewer prevented the newcomer from discerning his location. Bai Wu continued to speak out loud. Even someone with steel armor in Stage 2, Phase 4, wouldn't be this slow. Are you using Martian time? I'm curious why you think I know your talent sequence. Do you really think a lowly beggar like you can survive here for so long? How naive and cute. Many people want to see me dead. So the boss sent you to deal with me. How can you be sure this is not part of the plan? A lowly beggar not only did not die, but also mocked everyone. The show's effect is perfect, isn't it? And at this moment, the boss arranged for you, this poor devil, to come over. Everyone is also looking forward to you tearing me apart. But do you know, in the real script, you will never be able to tear me apart, and you will inevitably stay here. But I will continue to mock these nobles while stepping on your corpse. At this point, Bai Wu and the newcomer are already face to face. The Zhuang family will start a new gambling game. The gamblers will become even more crazy. So are you ready to accept this ultimate gift now? At this moment, a strange creature appeared above Bai Wu's head. The newcomer's footsteps also stopped. The next second, the fallen pounced straight towards the newcomer. The piercing screams and the sound of devouring flesh filled the entire underground. So Bai Wu found the solution. It's the unique monster in this world, the fallen. He learned this from the dialogue box and the fragments of the original memory. The fallen target humans through negative emotions. But Bai Wu is actually a monster who cannot be affected by negative emotions. Just now, he used words to induce fear in someone step by step. This happened in the blue area. Even the slightest fear can be fatal. After waiting for the object to leave, Bai Wu walked into the water. After feeling around, he found a small black iron disc the size of a palm. This is the teleportation device you've been thinking about. Simply twist it. You can go back to where you came from by doing so. The dialogue box is still powerful. After Bai Wu twisted the dial, the handcuffs fell off. The dialogue box has changed again. The current exploration level is 4.5%. There are 35 fallen left. Puzzle pieces in this area have not been obtained yet. I consider it just a formality. Bai Wu looked at the dialogue box with a smile again. There are still many questions in his mind. He hopes the tower can be more interesting. He is a waste beggar in the end of the world. The noble armies are competing fiercely to persuade him to join them. Just because he survived for 2 hours in the dangerous area of the end of the world. He also easily fought back and killed the elite assassin sent by the nobles. But Bai Wu was not impressed by this. He hopes even more to join the refugee army. Because he killed the killer and returned to the tower, he learned about the rules of this world through the interrogation team in the tower. For example, the power associated with the information of the killer is at rank 2 stage 4, which refers to the level of basic human abilities. The only way to increase the level of associated power is to enter the tower. The longer one stays outside the tower, the higher the growth of the associated power. Items outside the tower will also undergo similar changes. The people here call it soul attachment. In addition, The Assassin's Talent Sequence 755, Steel Armament, refers to a powerful superpower. Currently, there are a total of 1,024 talent sequences. The sequences that are closer to the beginning are rarer and more powerful. But this is also awakened based on the power of companionship. The stronger the power of companionship, the sooner the talent awakens. The Noble Legion mentioned is the High Tower Town Guard. It is mainly composed of noble children who do not leave the tower. The Refugee Legion is the Tower Outside Survey Legion. Their main task is to explore outside the tower to seek resources. Although they are all established by the ruling class of the 5 levels, Bai Wu believes that the rules of this world encourage people to leave the tower. Facing the fallen, there is no emotional danger for oneself. Besides, one is a beggar. Even if one mingles with the nobles, it's just being cannon fodder. The Investigative Legion outside the tower is also very interested in him. Captain Wu Jiu of the 7th team of the Legion and Captain Lu Mu of the 13th team are listening to the interrogation team's report. When they heard that the interrogation team not only failed to extract Bai Wu's secrets, but also got a lot of intelligence turned against them by Bai Wu, Captain Lu Mu from Team 13 burst out laughing on the spot. Fortunately, it was not their interrogation team that embarrassed themselves. Wu Jiu also did not get angry about it. After all, Bai Wu was asking questions that even a 3-year-old child would know. But this also made the 2 team leaders more interested in Bai Wu. Bai Wu came into their hands as the handiwork of a noblewoman. They couldn't understand why a noble who looked down on investigating military affairs would do such a thing. But they also found out about Bai Wu's impressive past experiences. Bai Wu is simply a born investigator beyond the tower. Lu Mu, who is good at interrogation, stood up when he heard this. He wanted to personally meet this capable person. Although this is the territory of the Wu Jiu team, Wu Jiu, who has survived alone in the tower outer zone for 24 days, is not good at this. At the 8th level of the power of companionship, he is better at splitting one into 2. A moment later, Lu Mu arrived at the interrogation room and sent the others away. But before he could say a word to Bai Wu immediately expressed his willingness to join the investigation corps. But he will not go to Liu Mu's team. He wants to stay in the team to which this interrogation group belongs. Lu Mu is confused. It seems like his ultimate goal has been achieved, but it also seems like he hasn't done anything. Bai Wu continued, "You haven't gotten rid of me. It means you are not the same group as the ones who threw me outside the tower. And judging from the reactions of the interrogation team, your appearance is not logical. Obviously, you are not the leader of their team." At this point, Bai Wu glanced at Liu Mu's right wrist. Your wrist joint is concave. It shows that your preferred weapon is a shield because the pressure point for people from Yongshun is the wrist joint. In normal people, the wrist joint is convex, and there is a scar 3 centimeters below the wrist bone. The shield must be in a damaged state. Because you are the squad leader of the Tower Investigation Corps, your level of associated power must not be low. The fact that a scar was left behind by the shield shows that it has been broken. And when you lifted the shield to protect your face, the fallen's claws would hit exactly 3 centimeters below the wrist. Lu Mu at this moment no longer knows who he is. Bai Wu saw that his verbal attack was successful. Immediately make a request. I need a complete table of talent sequence. If you can help me get it. He had not finished speaking. Lu Mu has already disappeared without a trace. The current Lu Mu only cares about one thing. How can such a person lead their 13 teams? 15 minutes later, Lu Mu rushed back in a flurry. He looked puzzled at Bai Wu, who was quickly flipping through the talent chart. Bai Wu seemed to have a significant lack of understanding about the tall tower. Bai Wu certainly couldn't say that he was a time traveler. He only said that he might have amnesia. It's possible that the people who caught him and threw him outside the tower had tampered with him. Well then, Lu Mu also didn't dwell on this unimportant matter. After sitting down, he followed Bai Wu's lead and began talking about common knowledge. He said within the 3 lower levels of the entire tower, the one at the forefront of the sequence is Wu Jiu. He possesses the talent of the 256th Extreme Shadow. Those even further ahead have not appeared in a long time. To Lu Mu, the top 100 are in the realm of gods. It is said that there was a miner from over 20 years ago. Awaken the absolute dissolution of talent sequence 76. It seems that person did not end up well. Bai Wu directly stated the conclusion upon hearing this. Lu Mu opened her mouth but still nodded. The person disappeared directly. The matter was quickly suppressed. We speculate that he was taken away by a higher-level organization. It could be the rulers at level 5, or even level 6. Bai Wu remained silent. He already knew that the Guangguan Tower currently only has 6 levels. Moreover, he has now found what he was looking for. Divine Trial Sequence 24, Eye of Player. Able to see annotations explaining the style and hidden aspects of one's character that are similar to one's own personality traits at the focal point of sight. Bai Wu confirmed that his ability is this. However, on the list of divine talents, there are no other explanations for the top 50 talents. Obviously, All of this is related to some very important information. But the style of the note says it's about the hidden side of his personality. Is his hidden side really that despicable? The original owner of this body doesn't know why he has such a high ranking. The accompanying power is so weak, indicating that this body has really just come out of the tower for the first time. It seems that the secret of this body is also significant. Thinking of this, he immediately asked Lu Mu, will the institution here force the testing of talent sequences? Lu Mu said that talent sequences are private to individuals. No one will specifically check unless the individual discloses it. Additionally, a person can only possess one talent sequence. But according to what has been passed down from the 6th level, you can also obtain additional sequences by killing extremely powerful, the Fallen. However, it is better to pray not to encounter such, the Fallen. Bai Wu also understands that his Eye of Player is not suitable for combat. However, if he wants to protect himself, he must find a way to obtain other talents outside of the tower. At this moment, Lu Mu suddenly coughed as if he was about to discuss something important. Bai Wu instantly understood his meaning. Shilia pressed on his chest with the order. I'm sorry, Mr. Lu, you are a good person, but I chose the 7th team. Mr. Lu Mu was rejected before he could speak. Bai Wu then stood up and walked out while saying, I learned during the previous interrogation that the 7th team is the most frequent team to challenge the tower among the 16 teams. Lu Mu was even more puzzled when he heard this. Isn't this a reason to discourage us from participating? But he quickly expressed that he can put Bai Wu in the vanguard group. All other requirements can be met. Bai Wu continued, Mr. Lu, you are still single, aren't you? Mr. Lu did not react. Bai Wu continued, remember, be sure to choose someone who has a good impression of you naturally. If you are interested in someone, never fight on their territory. You will lose if you make a move after being caught off guard. And also, the number 13 is not auspicious. Bai Wu said that after saying it, leaving and closing the door is very lucky. Lu Mu was petrified on the spot. Meanwhile, the captain of the 7th team, Wu Jiu, had been waiting outside for a long time. He said that he had already arranged the basic public identity for Bai Wu. Previously, it wasn't a big deal for Bai Wu to not have a citizen ID. At this moment, Eye of Player also jumped out. You know, when you are playing a game, you often encounter a powerful late-game NPC in the beginner village. This dwarf, who is only 159 centimeters tall, is roughly positioned this way. He is interested in the secret also sought after by the 6th layer. Wu Jiu doesn't know that his nickname has been exposed. He only says his name is Gu Qingyu. He asked Bai Wu to just call him Captain Gu. Okay, Wu Jiu. Upon hearing this, Bai Wu immediately called out to him. Perhaps this is Bai Wu's way of flattering him. Wu Jiu turned pale and cast a glance at the 2 interrogators behind him. Fortunately, he was used to being called by his nickname. Wu Jiu didn't care much about it himself. At this moment, Bai Wu raised a finger and continued, I have a request to make. Wu Jiu also understood immediately. If you don't want to go outside the tower, you can also join the interrogation team. We have accumulated a lot of cases recently. Bai Wu's mouth curled up into a smile again. It's not that. I want to leave the tower tomorrow. He is just a beggar with no strength. But the noble army is vying for his enlistment. And his requirement for joining is not money or beautiful women, but to take himself into the dangerous post-apocalyptic world. The Legion captain is also very puzzled by this. He had just barely escaped from the outside of the tower half a day ago. What does it mean to be so anxious to go out now? But Captain Wu Jiu is not a normal boss either. He agreed to Bai Wu's request without hesitation, just warning Bai Wu that his companion power is only at the 3rd stage of the 1st rank. After leaving the tower, make sure not to hold others back. Let Bai Wu go with you to the White Zone tomorrow as a team. Bai Wu did not heed Wu Jiu's warning. He knows the power of his companion spirit. It was obtained after living in the blue area for 2 hours. But he still didn't know how these color areas were divided. He directly brought up this question. For a moment, everyone was speechless, not knowing anything yet always thinking about running out. Wu Jiu ignored Bai Wu's foolish questions and left directly to help Bai Wu with other procedures. Xue Xi and Yun Shu from the interrogation team had to take over the task of receiving Bai Wu. They told Bai Wu that the outside area of the tower is divided into 6 zones: white, blue, purple, gold, red, and black. It probably means the further you go, the more terrifying it gets. Afterward, they helped Bai Wu change into a different set of clothes, waiting for him to become familiar with the environment on the 1st floor of the tall tower. A moment later, everyone arrived at the leak detection port in the lower level area. But as soon as they entered the port, they were immediately drawn to a huge screen. The people wearing the uniform of the Survey Corps on the screen were auctioning off items. It was as if they would lift the shovel in their hands up into the sky. Immediately started to criticize. Let Bai Wu quickly move away from the dog's eyes and find a beautiful girl to look at. It's not bad to spray oneself. At this moment, Yun Shu on the side is full of anger. Obviously, the person on the screen is definitely not a member of the Survey Corps. He's going to turn around and find Captain Wujio to raid their lair. Shuexiai quickly threw the stuff prepared for Bai Wu and chased after Yun Shu. After all, the forces inside the tower were in chaos. Yun Shu couldn't be allowed to act recklessly regardless of the consequences. Bai Wu didn't seem to mind. After circling around, they stopped in front of a store called Orange Baby Depot. Half an hour later, he returned home dragging big and small bags. This was the house that Wujio helped him rent at a low price. But as soon as he entered the house, he saw the box left for him by Wujio. The various items in the box showed Wujio's thoughtfulness. In addition, there was also an informational booklet about climbing the tower. Bai Wu did not act arrogantly. He picked up the booklet seriously and gave it a read. New climbers will be equipped with emotion-detecting wristbands. An alarm will be triggered when the wearer's emotional fluctuations reach 75. All members of the investigation corps must abide by the rules. In the first instance of the wristband alarm, activate the transmission wheel. After all, sometimes people are unaware of whether they are in an emotionally out-of-control state. Having a unified data standard would reduce a lot of troubles. But this thing is completely useless to you. The eye of player expresses Bai Wu's feelings. But you are definitely interested in another thing in the box.
Non-suppressive emotional sedative.
When close enough to the fallen. And the dial indicates that this substance can be injected when about to enter a dangerous area. It will momentarily put people in a calm state, lasting about 5 minutes. After the inhibitory effect wears off, emotions will enter an excited state. Any negative emotions will be amplified. Avoid using it unless absolutely necessary. Is this the principle of emotional spring? Bai Wu picked one up and pricked himself with a needle. Then he quietly counted the numbers, waiting for the emotional rebound after 5 minutes. He hasn't felt emotions like sadness or fear for a long time. 300 seconds passed in a flash. When it's time, Bai Wu recalls some past experiences. Still, there is no touch of emotion. Wujio won't joke about those fakes. But now, he indeed feels not a bit of excitement. He even feels like sleeping a bit. Well, there shouldn't have been any expectations in the first place. The next morning, Bai Wu arrived at the meeting point on time for departure to the outside. It gave the power to open up space to these stone tablets. But the purpose of the stone tablets is actually to seal up the guy at the top of the tower. Eye of player, timely noted. At this time, Wujio and his group also walked over. Bai Wu didn't know the other 4 people. However, the 4 of them were not arrogant at all. They all took the initiative to greet Bai Wu. Hello, Wangshi. A rich kid born on the 3rd floor of a high tower. Lacking in ambition and pursuing blood and excitement. As a macho man, he naturally loves to collect Barbie dolls. Lin Wuro. From the 2nd floor. A sissy who looks better than women. He is keen on dismemberment. Why don't you try to subdue him? Lin Wuro's shirts all look like black silk. Bai Wu couldn't help but comment, the little girl is really pretty. Shang Xiaoyi. A true weirdo. He looks like a little milk dog on the surface, but is actually the craziest among them. He often gets carried away and is forcibly pulled back to the tower by the dwarf. Bai Wu knew that the dwarf mentioned by Eye of Player is Wujio. He reached out his hand to shake hands with Shang Xiaoyi. But suddenly Shang Xiaoyi was pushed away by the last female team member. The girl took over to shake hands with Bai Wu instead of Shang Xiaoyi. In Shuang, the only girl in the team. She is an Avenger, just like that little dwarf. She also hides a secret that interests the 6th layer. She is the one most like a normal person among several people. What is the secret of the 6th layer that interests her? Is it the rare sequence? The Eye of Player is not a system. Bai Wu's questions remain unanswered. However, the style of this group in front of Bai Wu probably gives the feeling that they are all villains. Wujio told Bai Wu that the 6th teammate in the group has already died. Now Bai Wu is the 6th one. Then he walked alone towards the tower entrance. At this time, the light on the white stone tablet lit up. Logistics personnel, take notice. Prepare to assist the returning personnel. Confirm the safe return of the advanced reconnaissance team. Bai Wu also understood the origin of the resources in the tower upon seeing this scene. Human visits to the world outside the high tower are random. So there needs to be personnel from the Investigation Legion responsible for area inspection work first. After the clearance is completed, people from the lower levels will be arranged to work on cultivation. The numerical code on the steel should be the target location they are exploring. And the Bai Wu team naturally don't have to queue. These are members of the low-level reconnaissance corps. No one doesn't know Boss Wujio, and the work they do is not comparable to cultivating land. The moment Wujio's hand touched the white stone steel, a series of numbered grids appeared above. A white light immediately engulfed Wujio's figure. Seeing Wujio has already left, everyone also came forward one after another to input the code of Wujio's departure. Each of them disappeared inside the tall tower. But when it was Yin Shuang's turn, she stopped. Yin Shuang went over some instructions with Bai Wu again, telling Bai Wu to input the codes in increasing order across the rows. Ask him to operate once to enter the teleportation. Bai Wu thanked him and thought to himself that the note was indeed correct. Yin Shuang looks the coldest among them, but compared to the previous few people, she is the one closest to a normal person. Bai Wu entered a 7-digit number. From this, he couldn't help but think, does this mean that during the 700 years of the Towering Era, people have explored millions of areas? The people of this world have not dared to leave their homes for 700 years, because as long as they step out of their homes, they will gradually mutate into the fallen, who can only smirk stupidly. However, relevantly, the longer they survive, they will be able to obtain power beyond ordinary people. Bai Wu is thrown into the extreme temperature world of 88 degrees at the beginning, in order to explore the truth and have the power to protect oneself. The next day, he joined the investigation team and rushed outside the tower. But Bai Wu and the group were somewhat surprised after the teleportation was completed. 9th Mental Hospital. It doesn't look like the lowest level white area here at all. Wu Jiu also found the scene in front of him a bit strange. This time, he specially chose a white monument to take care of Bai Wu. At this moment, Bai Wu's eye of player jumped out. If you do not enter this hospital, the difficulty of exploration will be as expected. But once you enter, anything can happen. Who knows how much negative emotions can be harbored by psychiatric patients? This place is simply a breeding ground for the fallen. But inside lies a puzzle that only you can solve. Bai Wu looked at the hospital sign with some interest. The puzzle that only I can solve. Is it the apocalyptic puzzle pieces that were previously unobtainable? At this moment, Shang Xiaoyi looked frightened and said that there are many, the fallen, inside, making him a bit scared. Bai Wu glanced at Shang Xiaoyi, who appeared to be scared. The wristwatch fluctuates at 0. This person is not only a pervert, but also a drama queen. Yin Shuang also did not pay attention to this pervert. After observing the surroundings for a while, she said out loud, there are no mineral deposits or resources around. It should be an area close to the city. And behind, there is only this road and poplar trees. Wang Shi looks eager upon hearing this. Let's go in and take a look. This kind of scene usually occurs in the blue area. Wu Jiu, as the team leader, appears quite steady. The temperature is around 46 degrees, which is relatively comfortable. However, there is a possibility of a rapid change. Well, he is also a bit of a weirdo. Player I has spoken out what Bai Wu is thinking. He can only warn everyone to be careful. This statement made Lin Wuro, who had been silent, remain silent. If you're afraid, you can go back now. Don't attract the fallen to slow us down. Wu Jiu quickly interrupted Lin Wuro. He knew the character of his team members very well. Immediately, he hesitated no more. He stepped forward and slowly opened the gate of the mental hospital. But after observing for a week, they found out that there are a total of 4 medical buildings here. Each building has approximately 19 floors. Except for the first building, the lower floors of the other buildings are completely sealed off with no entrance. To reach the second building, one must go to the 19th floor and cross through the skywalk. Any design that goes against common sense must have a reason. Bai Wu probably guessed that the owner of the hospital did not want anyone to go to the second building. He summarized his thoughts and the rules of this place and told everyone about it. Lin Wuro snorted coldly at the words, whether out of genuine dissatisfaction or due to her personality. At this moment, Shang Xiaoyi's hands were trembling slightly. He said, there are 17 the fallen in the first building. He is very scared now. Bai Wu looked at Shang Xiaoyi again. He tried hard to suppress his excitement. Without him observing the eye of player, he had already started to complain. A moment later, the group walked into the first building. The scene inside the building was so filthy and disorderly that words could hardly describe it. Some of the walls even had eerie blood-red patterns painted on them. Everyone cautiously observed the surroundings. While it's fine to have fun, one must not be careless in the face of the bizarre world outside the tower. What made Bai Wu curious was the bloodstains and patterns. The bloodstains were dark red, indicating that they hadn't been there for long. However, the eye of player clearly didn't like it very much. Don't let Bai Wu try to speculate on the mental state of the patient. However, it can be seen that these bloodstains were made in the past 2 days. Whether it's to cover up or to guide, it's unknown. Wang Shi searched around and asked Wu Jiu what to do next. After all, there are too many rooms here. But Wu Jiu turned and looked at Bai Wu. Protagonist, what do you think? Bai Wu suggested searching room by room might gather some information. However, the deepest secret must be in the 4th building. Lin Wuro seems to have a conflict with Bai Wu. Whenever she hears Bai Wu speak, she would come out and mock him with a few words. Bai Wu did not mind. He just said that he would explain it only once. If asked again next time, please believe his words directly. Yin Shuang watched the show for a long time and was surprised to discover that Bai Wu is actually a bit bossy. Wu Jiu quickly stopped Lin Wuro again and let Bai Wu continue analyzing along that line of thought. Bai Wu did not pretend or show off. It is just as mentioned at the beginning. Only the first building of the 4 has an entrance and exit. If a patient in the 4th building needs emergency medical care, they will have to go from the ground floor to the 19th floor, passing by the 3rd building and the 2nd building to reach the 1st building, and finally going from the 19th floor of the 1st building to a certain level. By then the patient will have pretty much found a suitable partner for reincarnation. Therefore, logically speaking, the structure here is more like a prison than a hospital. And there is only one escape route for the prisoners. It can be easily controlled. Since it is a prison, the deepest part must be the 4th building. It is the most core and secretive place in the whole hospital. Speaking of this, Wang Shi first expressed his agreement. Anyway, he never needs to use his brain. But at this moment, Shang Xiaoyi interrupted the discussion of the crowd and pointed to the side, asking everyone to stop. They saw above the elevator door next to them, the previously dark elevator suddenly lit up with a number. Wu Ju immediately instructed the team members to be on high alert. This is the duty of a team leader. However, Shang Xiaoyi excitedly smoothed her hair. It seems we won't need to climb the stairs layer by layer. Bai Wu even cut straight to the chase and opened up the topic, indicating that he is very curious now. Generally speaking, no one has lived outside the tower for 700 years. These urban hospitals should have collapsed long ago. But why are some facilities still able to operate normally? For example, the fire hydrant he encountered at the beginning. Wu Ju's face did not show any panic, indicating that they had encountered this situation before. For example, in amusement parks, props are often activated intermittently. Some of the rules outside the tower are very strange. It seems that not only space is changing. Bai Wu nodded in response to the words. That is, phenomena that cannot be explained by current information. We can only temporarily classify them as established settings. During the conversation, the elevator has successfully arrived at the 1st floor. The fallen must be hiding in the elevator. All 6 people have already figured it out. As the elevator door slowly opens, the fallen, who is hard to describe, shines as they make their entrance. This is a game of madness and perversion. The patient with a fly head pushes open the elevator doors and rushes towards the perverted one. The little pervert smoothed his hair and was about to lose control. The big pervert snapped his fingers, wanting to turn defense into offense. The average pervert thought that this guy doesn't look tasty at all. As he expected, ultimate pervert Bai Wu looked speechless at the rolling fly head. Indeed, mentally ill individuals and perverts are incompatible. The item's spiritual level is 19 days. It can instantly add a weapon to break defense and weaken upon touching the fallen. Wu Jiu calmly put away the knife. The fallen with only 2nd level distortion is nothing to fear. Let's go now to the 19th floor of this building. Bai Wu ignored Wu Jiu's arrogance. He remembered that Wu Jiu had survived for 24 days outside the tower. It seems that the knife was also manifested at that time. At this time, the extremely abnormal Wang Shi and the slightly abnormal Shang Xiaoyi walked past him. They muttered that they hadn't enjoyed themselves yet before the fallen died. They urged Bai Wu to catch up quickly. However, Bai Wu bent down and picked up a fly's head. He went to the patient's side and started piecing it together. The patient had a fly proboscis-shaped object growing out of their head. The body didn't differ significantly from a human's. It seems that Class 2 aberration implies that the other party still has some resemblance to humans. Also, the other party no longer has reproductive organs. It seems that unnecessary things have been evolved away. Bai Wu analyzed while feeling around the patient's body. Soon, he pulled out a diary page from the patient's pocket. The general content is about the obsession of this patient, and it mentions a special girl on the 11th floor. There are torn marks and creases on the corners of the diary paper. It seems that there was a dispute with someone when it was hidden originally. The date of the diary is 2026. It is unknown how many years have passed since the current high tower era of 704. And the diary has remained unchanged for 700 years, just like an elevator. The rules that may be involved have made Bai Wu lost in thought. At this time, Lin Wuo, who was not on good terms with him, spoke up urging him on. Bai Wu then regained his composure and walked into the elevator. He told everyone that the danger ahead might be beyond estimation, and there is an interesting presence on the 11th floor. Then he didn't wait for everyone to speak. He then pressed the 11th floor button on his own. Of course, he didn't forget to tease Lin Wuo, who was urging him. Tell little sister Lin to be careful later. Bai Wu's voice had just fallen. Then a creepy laugh suddenly sounded. However, Shang Xiaoyi's face turned red again. Obviously, aberrations could not be understood by people. We quickly arrived at the 11th floor. The structure of this floor is basically rooms used to imprison patients. Strangely, there are no windows inside the building. At the end, there are 2 doctors' offices. The sound also came from the room at the end. Whispers of longing and sadness lingered in Bai Wu's ears. It seemed like two different voices of varying ages and emotions intertwined with each other. Just then, a drop of black liquid fell on Yin Shuang's shoulder. The next second, a pitch-black arm suddenly oozed out from the ceiling. It reached directly towards the unprepared Yin Shuang. The light of the blade flashed again. Wu Jiu made a very quick attack with the sword. In an instant, he blocked in front of Yin Shuang and severed the arm. Wu Jiu knew that the appearance of the arm was caused by someone's emotional disturbance. He immediately asked his teammates to calm down. But things did not calm down as Wu Jiu had expected. More fallen hands quickly reached out from the ceiling. Lin Wuo criticized while fighting back. His emotional wristwatch value has reached 11. Wang Shi shouted out loud, "Muscle man, explode with power." However, his emotional wristwatch value is only 9. Shang Xiaoyi excitedly acted like a fly seeing dung. Let everyone stop competing with him for these toys. But the emotional wristwatch on his arm currently only shows a value of 7. The only normal person in the team, Yin Shuang, dodged quickly. But her emotional wristwatch reading reached 21. The leader Wu Jiu took a glance at his wristwatch, then calmly spoke, urging everyone to quickly make decisions. Enter battle mode. His emotional watch value is only 3. Bai Wu is now standing lonely in the middle of the corridor, watching Wu Jiu and others chopping off arms. His emotional watch value will always be 0. Now he's so bored that he's already sleepy. But he also knows that his teammates have normal emotional values. It's still far from the danger zone. It's just that unexpected changes came quickly, and they had to deal with them hastily. At this moment, Wu Jiu seemed a bit agitated. Suddenly exerting force, his body produced a string of afterimages. The next second, the sword light instantly filled the entire 11th floor corridor. All the hands of the fallen disappeared. However, it seemed impossible to cut off these hands. More and thicker arms emerged from the ceiling. This hospital has been closed for over 700 years. However, its elevators are still functioning normally. Occasionally, some patients come out and interact emotionally. But this bizarre scene cannot stop the perverse curiosity. After Bai Wu and his group arrived at the 11th floor of the first building of the hospital, they quickly became embroiled in a fierce battle with the hands of the fallen. Because these hands will regenerate immediately after being cut off, only Bai Wu, who has no negative emotions, will not be attacked. The fallen encountered this time seems to be very rare. As long as there is a slight emotional fluctuation, it can sense the presence of its prey. And often, these kinds of the fallen are extremely powerful. At this moment, Lin Wuo looked at Bai Wu in surprise and asked in confusion why he didn't get attacked. Bai Wu yawned and rubbed his eyes. "I'm even feeling a bit sleepy." Yin Shuang knows why the captain asked Bai Wu to be the 6th person. This person is unusually bold. Shang Xiaoyi took a quick look back amidst his busy schedule. His value turned out to be 0. He is indeed a monster. And then he continued to cultivate on the fallen. Bai Wu is also lazy to continue staying here to watch people work. He suggests letting everyone be busy with their own tasks and go ahead to explore in the front. Wu Jiu's figure is blurry and his knife skills are extremely fast. Let Bai Wu stay there and don't move. It will be fine on my side soon. Bai Wu doesn't mind. He realizes that before everyone's emotions completely calm down, the hands of the fallen will not stop attacking. So he just waved his hand directly and walked straight towards the room at the end of the corridor. Wang Shi is a typical practitioner of the muscle physics school. He can directly smash these hands with brute force. But he is also very curious about Bai Wu's performance. Inquired where Wu Jiu found this freak Bai Wu. Wu Jiu did not give a direct answer to the question. Just said if Bai Wu's emotional fluctuations are in single digits, then perhaps he is indeed naturally brave. But if it's 0, either the emotion detector is malfunctioning, or he has a problem. Bai Wu then ignored the communication behind him. He pushed open the door directly. This is a room much larger than Bai Wu imagined. The floor was equally dirty and messy. There was also a delicate iron cage in the room. Eye of Player told him that this is a cage for holding spirits. It perfectly fulfilled its purpose as a prison. The poor little guy never managed to break free from the cage. It wasn't until the end that the little guy was let out by someone. It was born to be a cage, and it feels sorry for that. Similarly, this chain is also a spiritual item. However, in terms of binding play, it is indeed a bit heavy. But if it is handcuffs, then it fits just right. Inside this scattered pile of syringes, it contains various sedatives and some strange objects in the serum. 1 shot makes you refreshed. 2 shots keep you healthy and strong. 3 shots make you rejuvenated.
Camera.
The pixels are quite high, but there's nothing much to say. I suggest you install one at Yin Shuang's house. She likes to sleep naked. Bai Wu is a bit speechless. Busily turned his gaze elsewhere. There's no need to look as the documents in this room have been destroyed. The owner of the room has also been assimilated by the poor little fellow. There is a lot of information between these 2 rooms. But now you had better focus your attention on the table. Bai Wu looked around again. After confirming that nothing was missed, he came to the side of the table, because it was one of the few things that the poor little fellow's gaze had not destroyed. Instead, it became a choice for future visitors. These 3 items will grant you 3 things. Talent sequence. The friendship of the poor little fellow. The hatred of the poor little fellow. You must choose carefully, because once you choose one, the other 2 will disappear. Bai Wu frowned and looked at the file that looked like a diary. I opened the file for a check. This history has no dates. Each crooked page is written with the words of benevolence and morality. Oh, wrong lines. Who writes a diary seriously? This is a file. Inside are many details that you and the dwarf want to know. However, when the poor little fellow sees it, it will give you hatred, friendship, or talent. This is something you have to figure out for yourself. Of course, Bai Wu would not think that this is a history book from the era before the High Tower. The file records things that Bai Wu and Wu Jiu are interested in. Perhaps there are clues to some part of the historical truth here. He then looked at the items beside him. This key is not for the cage. It can unlock a crucial place. Perhaps it is a shortcut, or perhaps an abyss. Bai Wu scratched his head, feeling quite unattractive now, because there is no emotional response. He feels empty as a whole person. After all, in his past life, he was a complete archive collector. The last item, a comb, contains no information. He is not sure what consequences choosing any of them will bring. Among the 3 options, the top option is to receive a talent sequence after meeting the Fallen. The middle option is the Fallen's favorability rating. The bottom option is to be despised by the Fallen, although it should naturally despise humans. At the same time, the emotions of Wu Jiu and his group outside the house also calmed down. The Fallen's arm slowly retracted as well. Just as they were preparing to enter the house to find Bai Wu, the door to Bai Wu's room suddenly slammed shut. This is a game with no survivors. Various monsters attack the players in the game, but the players cannot have any emotional fluctuations. Otherwise, the monsters will continually regenerate and be invincible, until all participants are dead. Bai Wu was tortured by his abnormal father in his past life. He lost all negative emotions. This also allows him to explore advantageous information ahead of his teammates. Now Bai Wu is facing 3 different choices. If he chooses wrong, he will be doomed. As the door suddenly closed for some reason, the voices of his teammates outside the room became anxious. They started to bang on the door and call Bai Wu's name. But just as they tried to open the door and enter the room, the Fallen arms began to wildly emerge from the walls around them. The sudden turn of events caused the emotions of everyone to start fluctuating. The hard-earned reset value on the watch began to rapidly increase again. Even though they could handle the current situation, the increasingly strong resentment also made the group's hearts uneasy. Bai Wu did not know that as he was about to make a choice, the resentment on the entire 11th floor became extremely strong. He began to analyze the known information on his own. Drawing on his experience as a criminal investigator in his past life, he could roughly determine that the 2 rooms at the end of the corridor should be a laboratory. Apart from what he sees now, there should have been many props in the laboratory. However, they have all been destroyed. The experimental subjects are usually locked in cages. Every move they make is being monitored. The process of the experiment involves injecting a certain reagent to observe the reaction. This reagent may be related to the Fallen. And during this process, the subject of the experiment had been visited by someone. Or it can be said that her thoughts had come into contact with others. At that time, her thoughts should not have turned to resentment yet. Bai Wu's inference is based on the information left behind by the Fallen on the 1st floor. The Fallen who died on the 1st floor should not have seen her before turning into the Fallen. At least the hospital would not have allowed these monsters to meet each other. She may have communicated with others through telepathy. This is a secret between her and other subjects. After all, the hospital would definitely not want the subjects to communicate privately. On the other hand, the Fallen on the ground floor used to worry that she would be transferred to the 2nd building. As it turned out, she was indeed transferred to the 2nd building. It shows that her ability has been discovered. It is also possible that other experimental subjects who have had contact with her intentions have betrayed her. This can be inferred from this. The strength of the Fallen in the 2nd building is stronger than the 1st building. At least it is capable of launching grudge attacks. Or it could be said that after the experimental subjects acquire certain superpowers, they will be collectively transferred to the 2nd building. But why is there a comb? Moreover, Bai Wu's Eye of Player has not provided any information yet. From the wording on the note left by the Fallen on the 1st floor, it seems that the experimental subject is female. But in such an environment, why would a comb be used? Bai Wu activated his eyes again, but all he got was criticism as usual. Bai Wu actually had a speculation in his mind. If his empathy was intact, a negative emotion would emerge at this moment. Unfortunately, the emotion wristwatch on him still reads 0. Meanwhile, Lin Wuro outside the door is feeling a bit anxious. He is not sure what Bai Wu is up to and why there is no response. Wang Shi continues to charge forward with resentment. Is it possible that Bai Wu encountered the fallen entity in the house? The only one who can perceive the presence of the fallen is Shang Xiaoyi, but the corridor is filled with the echoes of Shang Xiaoyi's crazed laughter. Although the fallen's resentment is strong, his face is even more twisted in excitement than the fallen himself. There is simply no hope at the moment. As the most normal human in the team, Inshuang finds it somewhat challenging to deal with the sudden surge of the fallen's power. It is not because her abilities are lacking. Her wristwatch reading has reached 72. She is just a little short of the danger line at 75. Fortunately, Wang Shi has been providing support by her side. This big guy does give a sense of security. Wu Jio's pair of phoenix eyes narrowed into a line. The already exaggerated speed unexpectedly increased again. The corridor on the 11th floor was filled with flashing knives and swords. Not willing to give up on Bai Wu until reaching the critical point, the crowd persisted. At this moment, the sound of the doorknob turning rang out. Bai Wu walked out calmly with a horn comb in hand. All grudges disappeared in an instant. Lin Wuro, known for her sharp tongue, went back feeling defeated. With a displeased expression, she asked Bai Wu why he was still alive. Bai Wu could still see the lingering fanaticism on Shang Xiaoyi's face. He also had a rough idea of what had happened in the corridor. Wu Jiu looked at Bai Wu with an inquiring gaze. If the master of resentment had not been dealt with, why would the strong resentment have disappeared in an instant? But Bai Wu did not explain anything, such as the situation inside or why they chose that comb. Just said that the source has been temporarily suppressed. However, they should encounter it again later. He walked to the front of the team and headed towards the elevator. The members of the group looked strange, especially Lin Wuro. He swept his long hair and snorted coldly. There is a feeling in his heart that he is not as eye-catching as the newcomer. Wang Shi is very happy to see his teammates having fun. Only Shang Xiaoyi seems unsatisfied. The blush on his face lingers for a long time. Inshuang ignored everyone slowly adjusting their breathing. She tried her best to lower the values on her watch. But Wu Jiu was lost in thought at the moment. He saw that the value on Bai Wu's watch was still 0. This made him feel a bit uneasy. Here, everyone can become stronger by hanging up. The only thing to do is to walk out the door. But as long as you step outside, you will face all kinds of the fallen. The spirit of a mentally ill person who has been dead for 700 years. The intangible hands of the fallen. A multiple-choice question where choosing wrongly means death. Fortunately, Bai Wu was a clever detective in his past life. When he chose the only comb without any notes, the hand of the fallen, outside the room, also disappeared without a trace. But the game of exploring death had to continue. Bai Wu and his group boarded the elevator again. Without waiting for others to ask, Bai Wu first asked Captain Wu Jiu, "Was the fallen turned into by a person? If we stay outside the tower for too long, will we also become the fallen?" Wu Jiu remained silent for 2 seconds before responding calmly, "Have you seen the watch on your hand? The danger line is at 75 and the upper limit is 300. The dial color is green before the value reaches 75. After 75, the dial color turns orange. The fallen in the entire area can smell the odor when the value reaches 175, at which point the dial color is red." At this time, the elevator door suddenly opened. The 19th floor has arrived. Wu Jiu did not continue speaking, but Bai Wu already knew the answer. The red values range from 175 to 300. This range is presumably the beginning of human fallen transformation. Simply put, when people are extremely angry, they can be grouped together with the fallen. Outside the elevator, it is still pitch black. Wu Jiu took a step forward to walk out of the elevator and turned on the flashlight. The structure of the 19th floor is slightly different from the previous floors. The first thing you see is the lobby that has been converted into a dining area. At this moment, Shang Xiaoyi said vividly, "There are 6 the fallen outside the door. Their level should be higher than the one Wu Jiu killed with mental illness." After saying that, his face flushed again. Unfortunately, Wu Jiu knew what kind of person he was. While nodding, he raised his hand to stop him. He immediately drew his sword and pushed open the door at the back of the dining area. The fallen behind the door immediately focused their gaze on the intruder. Each one looked strange in their own way. Without hesitation, Wu Jiu walked in alone. Outside the door, Bai Wu chatted with Wang Shi. "Has Captain always been like this?" Wang Shi looked relaxed and not surprised, indicating that although Wang Shi is the vanguard of the team, Captain Wu Jiu always leads from the front. But there's no need to worry. Up to now, I have indeed seen the fallen that even the captain couldn't handle. However, he always manages to escape unscathed. Bai Wu's eye of player is sighing. His thoughts then turned to the power of companionship. He then asked Wang Shi if everyone's direction of growth with their associated power is different. Wang Shi said that it is the same, but every time you level up, you will gain additional abilities that can be used to expand your strengths. He cannot describe this process either. However, when Bai Wu breaks through from the first stage to the second stage, he will understand. At this time, the eye of player gave Bai Wu the answer. It's just the skill points in the game. Wu Jiu is undoubtedly a specialized player. By putting all points into speed, reaching the peak is just a matter of time. Wang Shi should focus on both attack power and vitality. This suits his muscle man image well. Lin Wuoro should have a balance between attack power and speed. She can be seen as a kind of team warrior. However, having Wu Jiu, the big brother, seems useless. Shang Xiaoyi has perception and attack power. His ability to accurately identify the number and strength of the fallen multiple times is evident. What's strange is that the attribute eye of player of Yinshuang cannot be seen. It can only be determined that she is supposed to be the weakest in the team, and it can be confirmed that it is not a survival attribute. Bai Wu also seems to have figured it out. It turns out that in this team, except for Wang Shi, everyone is like crazy dogs who only care about output without caring about their lives. This is really not sustainable. How can there be a dungeon run without a healer? At this moment, Wu Jiu's voice came from a distance, asking everyone to hurry up. The fallen, or whatever, was already lying on the ground in a mess. Bai Wu saw a high-level expert beside him and shifted his attention to the fallen. Level 3 The Fallen. Distorted entry. Iron Slicer. The scythe-like arms can cut through ordinary metals. They were security guards at the 9th Hospital during their lifetime. After death, they became the dead security guards of the 9th Hospital. After the director was eaten, they only obey the little cutie. Bai Wu understands implicitly. It seems that these 6 are the gatekeepers of the second building. At this moment, he thought of another question. So he called out to Wu Jiu, who was heading to the second building. He then stated that since the fallen of the first building is not Wu Jiu's opponent, as long as everyone keeps their emotions in check, the fallen of the second building won't be able to sense us. The longer you survive outside the tower, the faster your companion power will grow. So why doesn't everyone choose to hang out in the first building? Upon hearing this, Lin Wuoro's long-lost laughter of disbelief rang out. A newbie is a newbie, not even knowing this. The world outside the tower is hostile to humans. Every 4 hours, obstacles will be added to the body. Bai Wu doesn't like speedrun games. In his opinion, they are meaningless except for showing off skills. He indeed does not know about the setting mentioned by Lin Wuoro. Wu Jiu didn't stop for long. However, he kept explaining as if the speed had slowed down. The 5 senses are dulled. Emotional fluctuations are amplified. The attacking power of hallucinations decreases. Resistance to the fallen decreases, or fear of light and darkness, etc. Moreover, the obstacles encountered when leaving the tower each time are randomized. Bai Wu understands. It means that a debuff will be generated every 4 hours. In this way, it's indeed impossible to level up through AFK grinding. He somewhat understands why Wu Jiu has become powerful. Wu Jiu used to survive in the blue zone alone for 24 days before. This means that he was afflicted with over 100 negative status effects. He can still resist against the fallen. In the time it took to speak, everyone had already entered the second building of the hospital. It was dark inside. Including Shang Xiaoyi, the humanoid radar, everyone had not been discovered. The big boss of this trip was right above their heads. This mental hospital never admits patients. However, it has the highest drug usage in the city. After all, who would believe what a mentally ill person says? When Bai Wu and his group arrived at the second building of the hospital, they found that even the dark flashlight here could not illuminate. Wu Jiu then took out a hanging lantern that has the petrification slowing effect added, Lamp of Medusa. All non-human beings illuminated by the light of the lamp will be slowed down. In this action, it also prevents the fallen behind them from taking immediate action, as if it also possesses human intelligence. At this moment, Yinshuang spoke up with a suggestion. Since the aerial corridor of the ward building is at the top level, in that case, it's better for everyone not to explore further and go directly to the building behind. But Bai Wu refuted this proposal. He told everyone that the key to the third building is right here. Because its eye of player popped up a hint when entering the second building. Tell him not to try to bypass the second building. Only by going to the bottom floor of the second building to get the key, you can reach the third building through the corridor. The key was swallowed by a naughty little thing. Although you can force your way through using violence. But it is recommended to make the most of the comb that was just obtained. It will trigger more generous rewards. Wang Shi is somewhat puzzled. This is not something that can be inferred just by using your brain. At this moment, Wu Jiu answered the question for Bai Wu. He pressed it on the door of the third building. It means that this door has a scene that cannot be destroyed by rules. Now it's even more baffling for Bai Wu, the cheater. Wu Jiu said, generally speaking, ordinary scenes can be damaged. But if it is a key location, even if the accompanying power is high, it cannot be forcibly demolished. So he believes that what Bai Wu said about the pivotal nature of the third building is true. Bai Wu did not want to reveal the eye of the player and remained silent. His teammates also did not want to dig deeper. The group then arrived at the entrance to the next level. But Shang Xiaoyi found that the elevator in the second building cannot be used. Bai Wu came closer to take a look. This is not 19, but 0. This building is very tsundere. It originally didn't have an elevator, but pretends to have one. The level below you is the negative first floor. This corresponds to the layout of the 18 levels of hell. And the target you are looking for is in the deepest part of hell. Going through each level means increasing the exploration time. When everyone reaches the next level, they also encounter an issue. Moreover, there are no stairs leading to the lower level in front of them. It is obvious that the staircase layout of this building is in a Z shape. Only by winding around like a snake can one pass through smoothly. But at this point, they no longer say much. They follow Wuju to the next level. Along the way, the number of bodies of the fallen increases. Moreover, intact bodies are few and far between. The area illuminated by the light is also becoming less and less. It seems like something is constantly eroding the light. When they reach the negative 16th floor, they find that the walls of the ward have been pierced. It is evident that an extremely fierce battle once took place here. At this moment, the humanoid radar Shang Xiaoyi finally sensed that something was wrong. He always felt that a fallen one was getting closer and closer to everyone. Shang Xiaoyi is really scared this time. At least the emotional fluctuation reading on his wristwatch has reached 14. Wang Shi is more interested in the scenes here. He believes that crazy experiments must have been done here. At this moment, Bai Wu suddenly stopped. He took Wuzhou's lamp of Medusa and shone it to the side. Because a sudden awkward remark popped up in his mind. Using the camera here can provide a more accurate picture. Bai Wu thought for a moment and suddenly remembered. He had visited a high tower shop before setting off on his own. He made a deal with the shopkeeper there to send his spiritual belongings. Among them was a camera full of stories. Lin Wuro saw Bai Wu flipping through things for a while and took out a camera. Unable to help himself, he teased him to bring less of this junk. Bai Wu ignored him and focused on the camera. The notes on it had changed, although it pointed in a different spiritual direction than we expected. But it can still help you. Mentally recite the following numbers and look at cell number 12. There will be a surprise waiting for you. July 2nd, 2027, at 2:15 and 25 seconds p.m. Bai Wu guesses the meaning of the numbers and presses the shutter. The camera flash stunned everyone. All electronic devices are disabled outside the tower, unless it is a sentient item. As the owner of the camera, Bai Wu also received its spiritual message. The camera can capture images from the past by silently reciting the time. However, it can only be used twice within 7 days. The photo shows a teenager. With a crazy expression, he is looking at the camera in the middle of the room. Bai Wu looked at the photo and asked Wuzhou the doubts in his heart. Will the fallen team leader with a high level possess wisdom? Wuzhou expressed that it is inevitable for the fallen to become deformed. However, a few of the fallen will retain characteristics such as language from their human period, and a very small number of the fallen. Rather than calling them the fallen, it is more accurate to refer to them as the evolvers. Bai Wu nodded in response to the words. Then he raised the photo and said, the young man in this photo should be the guardian of this building. According to the captain, he is probably a very high level, the fallen. We haven't encountered any the fallen before. It's probably because of this little guy. Before the words fell, everyone heard a voice coming from above. A huge, the fallen, has appeared before our eyes. Wuzhou's hand rested on the weapon. With a calm expression, he prepared everyone for battle. He leaped up and swung his sword, but the attack missed. The fallen no longer concealed his crazy laughter. He simply waited.